Someone out there is completely consumed by thoughts of you, and yet, for reasons neither of you can fully explain, being together isn't possible right now. Some part of you already senses this is true, even if your rational mind keeps trying to brush it aside. Take a slow breath and really let yourself absorb what's coming, because none of this is a coincidence, and it isn't something you dreamed up in your own head. The person who just crossed your mind didn't appear there randomly. There's a quiet, powerful bond running between the two of you, one that resists explanation and refuses to simply fade away. This isn't some fleeting thought that will drift off by tomorrow. It's steady, it's constant, it refuses to let go. They're drawn toward you in a way that feels both overwhelming and tightly restrained, a kind of feeling they've never let themselves fully experience before. And yet, something keeps the two of you apart. Something about this connection makes it feel off-limits. Understanding exactly why is going to reshape how you interpret every thought, every emotion, and every shared moment between you, even the ones happening from a distance. Someone is fully captivated by you, but circumstances won't allow this bond to move forward, at least not yet. This situation is pointing toward two important truths, and it's worth slowing down to really take them in. Breathe deeply before continuing, because nothing about this message landed in front of you by accident. You didn't just stumble onto this. The person occupying your thoughts right now is there for a reason. Somewhere in your life, there's someone who keeps resurfacing in your mind unexpectedly, someone who feels an unusually deep connection to you. It isn't shallow. It isn't temporary. It runs deep, quiet, and persistent underneath everything else. They're infatuated with you, though not in some loud or chaotic way. It's a controlled, contained kind of feeling, something they've never allowed themselves to fully feel before now. And still, this connection seems forbidden. Not because love isn't real here, but because something is standing in the way of it moving forward. That forbidden quality points toward two very significant truths that explain why this bond feels so intense, why there's distance between the two of you, and why neither of you seems able to fully move on or let it go completely. Let's start unpacking this. First, it's important to understand something essential. When a connection feels restricted or blocked, that doesn't mean it's weak. Ironically, it usually means the exact opposite. Forbidden bonds are almost never shallow. They don't form because life got boring. They don't grow out of loneliness or a passing crush. They emerge from a much deeper kind of recognition, something that registers in both the heart and the mind at once. This person didn't sit down one day and decide to develop feelings for you. It crept up on them slowly, and then all at once. At first, you were simply someone they noticed, then someone they admired, then someone they trusted, and somewhere along the way, without fully understanding how it happened, you became the person occupying their thoughts more than anyone else. What makes this forbidden isn't an absence of love, it's the circumstances surrounding it. Timing, obligations, fear, or moral lines they feel they can't cross. This brings us to the first truth. This person is fighting an internal battle with themselves nearly every single day because of you. They aren't fighting against you. They're wrestling with their own emotions. They wake up already thinking of you and almost immediately talk themselves out of holding on to that thought. They replay your conversations in their head, then quietly scold themselves for smiling about it. They picture what it might feel like to be close to you, then push that image away because wanting you feels genuinely frightening, not because their heart is scared, but because the structure of the life they've built feels threatened by it. For some people in this position, it's because they're already committed to someone else. For others, it's family expectations, cultural pressure, social obligations, or moral boundaries they were raised never to cross. Sometimes one of you is simply unavailable in a way that complicates everything. Sometimes this connection challenges everything they once believed they wanted out of life. So instead of acting on it, they hold back. Instead of speaking up, they stay silent. Instead of reaching out, they watch quietly from a distance. Here's something most people completely misunderstand. Silence doesn't mean the feeling isn't there. Often, it means the opposite. The emotions are simply too overwhelming to manage openly. This person is anything but calm when it comes to you. Their feelings run intense, but they express that intensity quietly, almost invisibly. They don't speak because speaking would crack open a door they're afraid they won't be able to close again. They don't act because acting would force them to face outcomes they aren't ready to handle. They don't get closer because closeness would expose truths they've been hiding, even from themselves. There's an old psychological idea, one closely associated with Carl Jung, suggesting that whatever you fight against tends to grow stronger the more you resist it. That's exactly what's unfolding here. Every time this person tries to talk themselves out of reaching toward you, the feeling only deepens. Every time they hold back, the connection tightens instead of loosening. Every time they deny what they feel, it doesn't disappear. It simply stays hidden rather than fading away. And feelings that get suppressed rather than expressed don't vanish. They intensify over time. This explains that strange push and pull energy you might be sensing. It explains why you seem to feel their presence even when they're nowhere near you. It explains why thoughts of them show up uninvited, seemingly out of nowhere. It's why your mood can shift without any clear reason. You might feel their presence lingering even in the stillest, quietest moments. You might sense a kind of unfinished energy running between you. That's because hidden emotions don't just disappear, they wait. Jung's work also touches on the idea that until we consciously acknowledge the parts of our inner world we've buried, those parts keep shaping our lives from behind the scenes, and we often mistake that influence for fate. A great deal of what's connecting the two of you right now lives in that hidden, unspoken, unresolved space. Because it stays buried, it operates below the surface, quietly generating tension, strong emotion, and internal conflict. This person carries you in their private thoughts, even while the rest of the world only sees a calm, composed exterior. They may look completely put together on the outside, but internally there's a constant tug-of-war, desire followed immediately by restraint. That isn't happening because you don't matter to them. It's happening because you matter far too much. They're afraid of upending lives, breaking their own values, or setting something in motion they won't be able to stop. That internal struggle is genuinely exhausting. It's exactly why this connection can feel heavy even in silence, why it feels intense even without a single word exchanged, and why distance never actually brings either of you real peace. Jung also described human connection in almost chemical terms, suggesting that whenever two people truly meet, they leave the encounter changed, the way two substances react and transform each other on contact. You've already been affected by this. Both of you have been shaped by knowing each other, whether either of you is fully conscious of it or not. Something inside you has shifted simply from feeling this person's presence in your life. This isn't imagination. This isn't some mistake your mind is playing on you. This is a bond that exists outside the boundaries of ordinary logic and reasoning, and that's exactly why time alone hasn't erased it. It isn't sustained by habit, it's sustained by how much it actually means. Jung once suggested that where love genuinely leads, the need for control and power disappears. In this connection, nobody's chasing power, and nobody's trying to control the other person. That's part of what makes it feel so confusing. There are no games being played here. Nobody is manipulating anyone. It's simply two people caught off guard by something they never planned for and don't quite know how to fit into the structure of their everyday lives. As all of this unfolds, one truth becomes increasingly clear. You are not a distraction. You are not some accident. You cannot simply be swapped out for someone else. You're part of a story that's already in motion, gently guiding both of you toward a deeper level of self-understanding. And as that understanding continues to grow, the meaning behind this forbidden bond will keep revealing itself, one layer at a time, slowly and patiently, until the next piece of truth is ready to surface. As that next layer settles in, something else becomes impossible to ignore. This connection doesn't behave like an ordinary crush. It doesn't weaken with distance. It doesn't dissolve under logical reasoning. It doesn't vanish simply because the timing is inconvenient. Instead, it quietly follows both of you around. You might notice that even during your busiest moments, even when life pulls your attention elsewhere, this person drifts back into your thoughts without any effort on your part. It's not because you're actively trying to remember them. It's because something unresolved keeps stirring beneath the surface. The same thing is happening on their end. They might go days appearing completely unaffected, seemingly absorbed in work, family, and routine, but there's a quiet pull constantly drawing them back towards something they haven't been able to finish or resolve. They remember what it felt like to be understood by you without needing to explain themselves. They remember how effortless it was to talk to you, that strange sense of recognition, almost like they'd known you before. They remember moments that ended up meaning far more than they probably should have, and that's precisely what frightens them. Once you've truly felt seen at that level, there's no unfeeling it. This is where most people misread forbidden connections entirely. They assume distance exists because one person cares less. Often, it's the exact opposite. Distance isn't always a sign of insufficient feeling. Sometimes it's a sign of feeling far too much. This person understands that taking even one step closer might mean they can never fully return to who they were before. They sense that something irreversible is waiting on the other side of complete honesty, and they're not yet ready to dismantle a carefully constructed life, even one that no longer truly fits who they've become. So instead of telling the truth, they choose to stay in control. They choose the structure they know over the emotions they're unsure how to handle. They choose familiar discomfort over an uncertain truth. But that choice comes at a cost. Every time they push down what they're feeling, it doesn't just disappear. It transforms into something else entirely. It shows up as restlessness, as distraction, as a quiet emotional distance from the very people they're supposed to be closest to. They might start questioning relationships that once felt completely secure. They might wonder why something feels missing that they can't quite name. They might find themselves no longer satisfied by answers that used to feel like enough. They may never say your name out loud, but you become an unspoken measuring stick they compare the rest of their life against. You represent a version of emotional honesty they haven't yet let themselves actually live. This is why the connection feels unfinished. It was never only about two people wanting each other. It's about two lives standing right at the edge of major change. And you feel this too, even if you can't fully put it into words. You might have noticed that ever since meeting them, your standards quietly shifted. What you're willing to accept feels different now. What you genuinely want has become clearer. What you once tolerated now feels hollow. You might find yourself less willing to settle for someone who's only halfway emotionally present. You might have less patience for connections that lack real depth. You've become more aware of what a genuine bond actually feels like, and that awareness didn't come out of nowhere. It came from recognition. This is where the second layer of meaning starts to reveal itself. This connection isn't only about desire, it's about awakening. Some relationships exist to build a shared future. Others exist to wake you up to your own truth. This one belongs firmly in that second category. That doesn't mean it can never grow into something more. It just means its first job is internal, aimed squarely at you. You crossed paths with this person at a moment when something inside you was ready to be stirred awake. And they met you while quietly questioning the life they were living, even if they never said so out loud. That's exactly why this pull feels both so strong and so confusing at the same time. You're mirrors for each other. You reflect back the parts of themselves they've kept hidden, and they reveal the parts of you that had been waiting to finally be noticed. This kind of bond doesn't follow conventional timing. It doesn't rush. It doesn't announce itself clearly or loudly. It works slowly beneath the surface, gradually reshaping your priorities, your values, your awareness. That's why even the silence between you carries a certain charge. Something is still moving underneath it. You might wonder why letting go feels so impossible, why logic alone can't seem to end it, why convincing yourself nothing can ever happen doesn't actually bring any relief. It's because this bond isn't sustained by fantasy. It's sustained by a truth that hasn't been lived out yet, and a truth once genuinely felt is nearly impossible to forget. You're not just holding on to a person, you're holding on to a moment of emotional clarity that changed you, and they're experiencing something similar on their end. None of this means you should sit around waiting. It doesn't mean putting your life on pause. It doesn't mean giving up your present in exchange for a maybe. It simply means understanding what this connection is actually teaching you. It's showing you how deeply your heart is capable of feeling. It's showing you what a connection that nourishes you rather than drains you actually feels like. It's reminding you that real feeling exists beyond what's convenient or safe, and it's teaching the same lesson to them, whether they're ready to admit that or not. What happens from here can't be forced. It can't be rushed through sheer desire. It can't be changed through silence or through chasing them harder. This kind of bond only opens up fully once honesty becomes stronger than fear. Until that happens, it stays suspended in an in-between space, not gone, but not fully present either. It stays alive in thought, alive in feeling, alive in those quiet moments where truth tends to whisper rather than shout. As time passes, the tension between who this person currently is and who they're slowly becoming will only continue building. The same holds true for you. Eventually, something has to give, because a mind that's already been awakened doesn't go back to sleep. And when that shift finally happens, it won't come from simply wanting it badly enough. It will come from genuine readiness. And readiness rarely arrives with fireworks. It doesn't show up through grand gestures or dramatic conversations. It arrives quietly, through discomfort, through the slow realization that something inside no longer fits the life currently being lived. For them, this often starts as a small crack. They begin noticing that the roles they've been playing feel heavier than they used to. Responsibilities they once accepted without a second thought start to feel more like traps. Their emotional routines start feeling hollow, even when everything appears fine on the surface. You didn't cause that crack. You're the light that revealed it was already there. You didn't disrupt their life. You simply illuminated parts of it that were already out of alignment. That's exactly why this connection feels dangerous to them. Not because it threatens their physical safety, but because it threatens the carefully built version of the life they've been living. Comfortable lives are often built on illusions. Truth isn't comfortable in the same way. Truth demands responsibility. It demands courage. It requires someone to honestly face what they feel and decide whether they're brave enough to actually live that way. A lot of people simply aren't ready to make that choice the moment a feeling like this first appears. So they wait. They make excuses. They tell themselves it's just a phase, that it's their imagination, that it'll fade if they just ignore it long enough. But genuine connections don't disappear just because they're ignored. They turn into pressure instead. That's why you might notice waves of closeness followed suddenly by distance, moments where they seem fully emotionally present, then abruptly pull away, times where you feel a powerful connection without a single word being exchanged. That back and forth isn't confusion about you. It's a battle happening entirely within them. They're standing at a crossroads between who they used to be and who they're slowly becoming, and you represent that doorway, the point where real change and growth begin. Something equally significant is happening within you at the same time. You're learning how to tell the difference between an intense emotion and genuine alignment. You're discovering the real difference between simple attraction and something that resonates on a much deeper level. This connection didn't come into your life to take it over or control it. It came to bring clarity and insight into your inner world. You may have noticed that shallow attention no longer excites you the way it used to. You might feel less compelled to chase external validation to prove your own worth. You're learning that shrinking yourself to make someone else comfortable simply isn't necessary anymore. None of that is coincidence. That's growth happening in real time. This bond is teaching you how to respect yourself without needing to say a word about it. It's giving you a small preview of what it feels like to be truly emotionally in sync with someone, even while the connection itself remains incomplete. And once you've experienced that, it's genuinely hard to ignore or dismiss. That's exactly why this connection feels so different from anything ordinary. Different doesn't mean flawless. It doesn't mean effortless. It doesn't guarantee any particular outcome. But it does mean this connection carries real meaning, regardless of what ultimately happens. Whether this eventually becomes something long-term or remains permanently unfinished, it has already done part of what it came to do. It has widened your emotional range and sharpened your intuition. It has clarified what genuinely matters to you in love, and it's done the same thing for the other person involved. That's exactly why neither of you can easily brush it aside. This isn't a path either of you is walking alone. You might wonder why the timing feels so painfully inconvenient, why this connection showed up at a moment it couldn't fully come together. But timing rarely exists to punish anyone or block them for no reason. More often, it exists to prepare people. Sometimes two people enter each other's lives not to be together right away, but to grow individually first. Because without that internal transformation, even the strongest bond can collapse under the weight of fear, old habits, or patterns that were never fully healed. Right now, both of you are being asked to look at something deeper than simply wanting one another. You're each being asked to confront the truth within yourselves. For them, the question is whether they're willing to live honestly, even when that honesty comes with real consequences. For you, the question is whether you're willing to value and honor yourself, even when waiting feels like the hardest thing you've ever had to do. That's exactly why patience matters here. Not a passive kind of patience built on hope alone, but a grounded patience rooted in trusting yourself and your own growth. You're not meant to put your life on pause. You're not meant to stay stuck in longing or endless expectation. You're meant to keep moving forward, choosing, growing, living fully in the meantime. If this connection is ultimately meant to become something lasting, it will only happen once both of you can meet each other completely, without holding anything back, without hiding, without half measures. And even if it never transforms into a shared life, its impact will still last, because it has already shifted something in your inner compass. That's not a loss. That's a beginning. Plenty of people go through life without ever experiencing a connection that genuinely wakes them up. They settle for relationships that feel safe, but ultimately hollow, choosing comfort over truth every time. You didn't do that. You encountered something real enough to challenge your old habits, illuminate your fears, and demand real growth from you. That alone sets this bond apart from anything else you've experienced. As time continues to move forward, clarity will come, not through force, not through waiting around passively, but through living authentically and acting with genuine integrity. People eventually either rise to meet the truth they feel inside, or they retreat back into what feels safe and familiar. Both paths eventually reveal their answer, and you won't need to chase that answer down. It will show itself through actions, decisions, and the natural flow of life. Until that clarity arrives, hold on to what this connection has already given you. It has given you awareness. And once awareness wakes up inside you, nothing stays quite the same as it was before. As your own awareness deepens, a subtle but lasting shift begins to take hold. You stop trying to put a neat label on the connection. You stop demanding an explanation for why it exists at all. Instead, you start listening to what it's actually awakening inside you. This is where your personal power returns. The most dangerous part of any forbidden or complicated connection was never the desire itself. It was losing yourself while trying to figure it all out, and you're no longer doing that. You're starting to notice how steady you feel when you put yourself first, how calm you feel once you stop searching for signs everywhere, how much clearer everything becomes once you stop trying to interpret every pause and every silence. That shift matters more than it might seem on the surface. While this connection may have once pulled you in through sheer intensity, it's now teaching you something far deeper, how to become fully your own person. You're learning that a genuine connection never requires you to give up your identity. Real love doesn't ask you to wait around in confusion or suffer to prove it's real. Deep feelings don't require hardship as proof of their existence. This lesson matters whether you end up staying connected to this person or not. Meanwhile, on their end, the tension keeps building. While you're consciously absorbing this lesson, they're still wrestling internally. They're becoming more and more aware of the gap between the version of themselves that follows the rules and stays within the lines, and the version that finally feels alive and honest whenever they think of you. That contrast can't be avoided forever. People can dodge difficult conversations. They can put off hard choices. They can sidestep conflict for a while. But eventually, nobody can keep avoiding themselves indefinitely. Sooner or later, the cracks start to show, not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, one small moment at a time.